There is a stone above the city of Cusco that weighs more than 4 blue whales. Someone shaped it, lifted it, and set it against its neighbor so exactly that 500 years later you still cannot slide a razor blade into the seam. No mortar, no iron tools, no wheel, no crane, not even a draft animal stronger than a llama. And they did this to hundreds of stones like it, on a mountain ridge, in one of the most earthquake-prone places on the entire planet. This is Sacsayhuaman, and it still stands, terrace above terrace, exactly where the Inca left it, 5 centuries after the empire that raised it was broken apart by conquest. It sits on a ridge directly above Cusco, the capital of the largest empire the Americas ever produced, in the high Peruvian Andes, more than 3,500 meters above sea level. 3 walls, stacked one above the other, zigzag back and forth across the hillside for more than 360 meters, in as many as 22 sharp angles. Some of the blocks in the lowest wall stand taller than a 2-story house. One, nicknamed the Sentinel, is estimated to weigh close to 200 tons and rises nearly 9 meters out of the ground. Every one of these blocks is a different shape. Not one is a simple rectangle, and yet every single edge meets its neighbor without a gap. Stonemasons call this polygonal ashlar masonry. Each stone is cut with as many as a dozen faces, interlocking with its neighbors like a 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle carved from solid rock. Nothing holds these stones together. No cement, no mud, no binding agent of any kind, not anywhere in the wall. Only the exactness of the cut and gravity, holding 100 tons in place. Elsewhere in Cusco, in a narrow colonial street, one Inca-cut stone has 12 distinct angles on a single face, and still meets its neighbors without a seam. So the first question is simple, and it only gets stranger the longer you sit with it. Where did stones this size even come from, and how does anyone move one? Some of the smaller blocks were cut from andesite quarries just above the fortress itself. But the largest limestone blocks came from Rumicolca, a quarry more than 35 kilometers away, across broken mountain terrain. No wheeled cart could have carried them. The Inca never adopted the wheel for transport. No horse or ox existed anywhere in the Americas to pull one anyway. The Spanish chronicler Pedro Cieza de Leon, who spoke with Inca elders only a generation after the conquest, wrote that 20,000 men labored on this wall, rotating in shifts across decades. 4,000 quarried and cut the stone. 6,000 hauled it on ropes and rollers. The rest built roads, dug the foundations, or died in the effort, according to the same chronicle. The method, as best we can reconstruct it, log rollers laid beneath the stone, thick fiber ropes woven from plant cord, and earthen ramps built up alongside the growing wall, raised and extended as the wall itself rose. Chroniclers recorded a grim detail: sometimes the ropes broke, or the stone shifted, and the block crushed the men guiding it. One account claims 3,000 died in the effort of moving stone alone. Later folklore softened that grim memory. Villagers told of stones that wept as they were dragged across the mountain, or sang as they settled into place, as if the rock itself grieved the labor it cost. Getting the stone to the site was only the first half of the problem. Every block still had to be shaped to fit its exact, unrepeatable neighbor. Inca masons had no iron or bronze chisels sharp enough for stone this hard. Instead, they used hammerstones. Fist-sized cobbles of hematite and other stone harder than the block itself. Pounded again and again against the surface, these hammerstones slowly pulverized the rock face into shape, not by cutting, but by controlled, patient battering, thousands of blows per stone. Those pounding marks are still visible today on unfinished blocks nearby, abandoned mid-shape when the work simply stopped. Each block was likely test-fitted against its neighbor, lowered into place, lifted back out, and pounded again wherever the fit was imperfect, over and over, until the seam disappeared. Some researchers believe a final polish, fine sand and water rubbed by hand across the joint, sealed the last hairline gaps that even careful pounding could leave behind. The result is not just precision for its own sake. It is engineering. The odd angles of each stone interlock like a puzzle no earthquake can easily shake apart. Cusco sits in one of the most seismically active regions on the continent. In 1650 and again in 1950, major earthquakes leveled much of the colonial city built beside these walls. Spanish colonial buildings, mortared and rigid, cracked and collapsed in those quakes. The dry-fitted Inca walls above them barely moved. The irregular joints let each stone shift fractionally against its neighbors during a tremor, absorb the energy, and settle back into place, the same trick modern base isolation engineering tries to reproduce with steel and rubber. Structural engineers still travel here specifically to study that joint geometry, 5 centuries before the term earthquake engineering existed. So the walls survive by design, not luck. But that only sharpens the next question: what was all this precision actually built for in the first place? For centuries, the standard answer was fortress. The zigzag shape lets defenders on the upper wall fire down into the flank of any attacker climbing the lower one, a killing angle built directly into the architecture. But 3 round and rectangular towers once stood on the plaza above the walls, and their foundations tell a different story: storerooms, fine stonework fit for ceremony, and living quarters, not just a garrison. Chroniclers named the towers Muyuk Marka, Salak Marka, and Porka Marka. One held water in stone-lined channels. Another stored food and weapons. The largest may have housed the Inca ruler himself during festivals or sieges. So Sacsayhuaman was very likely both at once, a refuge that could shelter thousands in war, and a ceremonial complex central to Inca religious life in peacetime. There is a third layer to the design, one visible only from far above. Early Spanish chroniclers described Cusco itself as built in the shape of a puma, a sacred animal to the Inca. In that reading, the city below formed the puma's body. The fortress above, on its ridge, formed the head, and the zigzag walls, jagged and sharp, formed the puma's bared teeth. Whether or not every angle was consciously carved to resemble a fang, the Inca themselves clearly saw their capital, and this fortress above it, as something larger than stone and mortar, a living sacred body. Construction on this scale did not happen quickly, or under one ruler. Work most likely began under Pachacuti, the emperor who transformed a small highland state into an empire, sometime around 1440. His successors, Topa Inca Yupanqui and then Huayna Capac, continued the work for decades more. By some estimates, the wall as we see it today took the better part of a century to finish. The labor came through MITA, a rotational duty owed to the state by every household in the empire, not slavery, but a tax paid in work, cycled so no single community bore the whole burden alone. Villages from across the empire, from present-day Ecuador to Chile, sent laborious and materials here, coordinated across thousands of kilometers of Andean road, without writing, using knotted cords called quipu to track it all. For nearly a century, Sacsayhuaman stood as the crown of a functioning empire's capital, a symbol of Inca power visible from every corner of the valley. Then, in 1532, Spanish conquistadors arrived, and everything the Inca had built began to unravel with astonishing speed. By 1536, the puppet emperor the Spanish had installed, Manco Inca Yupanqui, had had enough. He escaped Cusco, rallied an army said to number in the tens of thousands, and marched back to retake his capital. The Spanish, badly outnumbered, barricaded themselves in Cusco below. But whoever held Sacsayhuaman on the ridge above held the high ground over the entire city, and Manco's forces seized it first. Juan Pizarro, brother of the conquistador Francisco Pizarro, led a desperate cavalry charge up the slope to break the siege and retake the fortress's towers. The fighting for the towers was brutal, hand to hand, for 2 days. Juan Pizarro was struck in the jaw during the final assault and died of the wound days later. Inca chroniclers later told of a warrior named Cahuaid, who, rather than surrender the last tower, wrapped himself in his cloak and leapt from its height to his death. When the towers finally fell, the Spanish accounts describe thousands of Inca dead heaped around the walls, and condors, drawn by the scale of the slaughter, circling the fortress for days afterward. The siege failed. Manco Inca retreated into the mountains and continued resisting from a remote jungle stronghold for decades, but Cusco and Sacsayhuaman never again returned to Inca hands. What the Spanish did next explains why so little of the upper fortress survives compared to the base walls we still see. They used Sacsayhuaman as a quarry. For generations, colonial builders hauled cut stone down from the site to raise churches, mansions, and monasteries in the new city of Cusco below. Walk through central Cusco today, and colonial stone walls still sit directly on top of pale, precisely fitted Inca foundations, 2 very different building traditions, stacked one on the other. The most sacred Inca temple in the empire, Coricancha, suffered the same fate, its Inca stone walls left standing as the foundation for a Spanish colonial church built directly over it. Only the largest blocks at Sacsayhuaman escaped, simply because moving stones that weighed tens or hundreds of tons back down the mountain was not worth the effort, even for the Spanish. That accident of weight, too heavy to be worth stealing, is the only reason the wall we still admire today survived at all, while everything smaller around it was carried away. For centuries afterward, local legend held that a network of tunnels, the chincanas, ran underground from Sacsayhuaman all the way to Coricancha in the city below, and even further, into the mountains. Explorers who went looking for the tunnels in past centuries reportedly never returned, according to local telling, and colonial and later authorities eventually sealed the known entrances shut for safety. No confirmed tunnel network has ever been mapped by archaeologists, but drainage channels and small stone-lined passages do run beneath parts of the site, real engineering that likely fed the legend. For nearly 400 years after the conquest, Sacsayhuaman sat mostly forgotten by outsiders, its plaza used for grazing, its remaining stones slowly disappearing into new colonial buildings. Serious archaeological attention returned only in the early 20th century, around the same years that Hiram Bingham was bringing Machu Picchu to world attention deeper in the Andes. Excavation slowly uncovered buried foundations, stone-lined water channels, and the round base of the tower where the towers once stood, filling in a plan the Spanish accounts had only described in words. In 1983, UNESCO listed Cusco, including Sacsayhuaman, as a World Heritage Site, recognizing it as one of the finest surviving examples of Inca engineering anywhere in the former empire. Today the site is protected, studied, and, once a year, brought fully back to life, not as a museum piece but as living ceremony, the way it was originally meant to be used. Every June 24th, on the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere, Cusco holds Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun, an Inca ceremony revived in the 20th century and staged on this exact plateau. An actor plays the Sapa Inca, carried on a golden litter, surrounded by priests, warriors, and dancers in feathered headdresses and finely woven textiles, reenacting a ceremony to honor the sun god Inti. Tens of thousands of spectators and descendants of the Inca themselves fill the plaza and the surrounding hillside to watch, the largest surviving indigenous festival anywhere in South America. It is one of the rare places on Earth where a people still perform their ancestors' rites on the exact stones their ancestors built for that purpose, 5 centuries unbroken. Step back from the color and ceremony, though, and the raw engineering achievement underneath it all is still the part that resists any easy, tidy explanation. A society with no iron tools, no wheel, no written language in the conventional sense, and no draft animal larger than a llama moved and fitted stones that modern construction cranes would still find difficult today. Some fringe theories reach for lost technology or outside help to explain it, but every piece of physical evidence at the site, the hammerstones, the ramps, the pounding marks, points to something more remarkable, not less, patient, coordinated human labor at enormous scale. What Sacsayhuaman really proves is not that outsiders built it, but that an empire without metal tools, without the wheel, and without a written alphabet could organize labor, logistics, and stonecraft on a scale that still humbles engineers today. The Rumicolca quarry that supplied these stones is still there. So is the mountain road the Inca cut to move them, worn smoother now, but running the same course it did 600 years ago. Stand at the base of the lowest wall today, run a hand along the seam between 2 blocks that together weigh more than a jumbo jet, and you still cannot fit a blade into the gap. That single detail, repeated across hundreds of stones, across 3-tiered walls, across an entire mountain ridge, is the real mystery of Sacsayhuaman. Not that it is impossible, that it is real, and it is still standing, unmoved, unrepaired. Long after the empire that built it fell, long after the city below it was rebuilt twice over by other hands, the wall itself has never needed rebuilding at all. It is still exactly where the Inca left it, zigzagged like a puma's teeth, fitted tighter than anything built since, waiting on its ridge above Cusco for whoever climbs up to notice.